taught to believe, or to our frame of references, our initial education, or the kind of world that we were prepared for is no longer there. It's a completely new picture. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody saw these advancements, taking part of our lives and taking over our lives so fast. So I don't think that the future that we all had in mind, say 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? When we were all starting our careers, perhaps, when we were in university lives, perhaps. So the future that we all have in mind is no longer there. It's a completely different reality. It's a completely new reality. And I don't think we're all trying to figure it out. We may see leaders and gurus and even ourselves as teachers, tutors, trainers, coaches giving solutions. But how are we giving solutions? We're figuring it out. We weren't trained for this. So let's keep that in mind. I think that's the premise that I would approach this conversation with. And, I open the floor to rest.
Okay. So before I invite the other speakers, I just want to share that we are live now. And to give perspective to the listeners or to the our community, I just want to add on. We have started our conversation on future of leadership, workplace, and well-being. We have great panel of speakers. So we are just talking about the future of leadership, workplace, and well-being. And the first question was how these speakers look at the concept of leadership in terms of last 2 years of pandemic. Mehdi has been sharing his views, and thank you so much, Mehdi, for that. And now it's a casual chit chat. Any speakers can join in. So the ball is in your court, Vivek, Dr. Wendy, Richa, and Mallory. You can share your perspective on last 2 years of pandemic and the role of leadership.
Yes.
So since she went on that. Okay, Dr. Wendy, you go first.
When you have women in the house. Okay, but of course, Manny got it first. But anyway, today is like a two-sided of the coin. You can actually say the impact of the pandemic is affecting or impacting us. But of course, in the other side of the coin, I find that it creates a lot of discovery, be it self-discovery or business discovery. Or I should say that is also a opportunities that we can actually do a lot of things that we could never actually imagine that we could, but now we can in a way. So when we talk about the whole landscape, how I look at it, right? And after these 2 years, I have one conclusion that there is no companies or person that is too big or too great not to fall, and there is no company or person that is too small not able to grow big. And because the landscape has changed tremendously, they have changed how the game is being played. So in a way, we have leveled the playing field. All of us stand a fair chance. It's now on who, okay, can take the things that we are doing to the next level. This is my take.
Great perspective. Thank you so much, Dr. Wendy, for sharing your thoughts. Mallory, what do you think? What last 2 years have taught us in terms of leadership, workplace, and well-being?
For me, I think we have moved a bit away from a competitive world to a collaborative world, because a lot of times, once upon a time, is my company versus your company, and then who has the larger market share. And they know today that if we are all fighting for a piece of the pie, we're not going to get the pie at all. So how can we work together to sustain the pie? Because if we don't take care of one another, we can't take care of the industry. And if an industry collapses, not just one company, many companies collapse as well. So for me, the world has become a lot more collaborative, locally and abroad.
Great. And that, evidence is that we all are on one platform.
Yeah, that's right.
Four countries on one platform.
True. It could have been a dream, 2 years ago.
Yes.
So, Richa, what are your thoughts on last 2 years, especially when we talk about the pandemic or this global crisis, and then the role of leadership? I'm sure you have been working closely with many organizations on that. What sort of change you have figured out in the perception of organizations?
Right. So, very honestly, as I'll, also, further to what Maddie was saying, we are still trying to figure out, right? So everybody's, whether it's a speaker, a trainer, a coach, everybody's looking at some or the other answers to how do we really handle the new leadership and how do we really, handle the new world that we are in, because nobody would have imagined it, a few years back. But my thought, my opinion is that I think it's very important to uh, you know uh, keep challenging ourselves in this new world that we are living in, keep looking for new ways, be as flexible, as adaptable as we can, because those fixated things have really been that kind of mindset has to change. So even when we are working with different corporates and different industries, different fields, etc., I think the important thing is that we all need to be more resilient, more agile. As leaders, we need to ensure that we are having that empathy that was probably lacking some time back, so that empathy has to really showcase more and more for our people, because everybody is going through so many challenges, so it's important to be honest, to be empathetic towards our people. I think that's the most important learning which has been coming my way.
Wow, great. Really, really nice thoughts. And coming back to Vivek, you have been working with millennials. You have written a book about it. So, how do you see the impact of COVID on millennials? And what do you think what will be the impact of even COVID on the millennial mindset when it comes to joining their businesses or even workplaces?
So there are a few trends that we are actually observing right now. The first is that millennials are pretty happy that they can work from home because it gives them a certain level of flexibility. Second thing is they don't want to go back to a 5-day work week. They actually prefer a 2-day or a lesser day work week, because that flexibility is something that they really like and they enjoy. And they've been talking about having this kind of situation even pre-COVID days. They were looking for more work-life balance. They were voicing out their concerns around it. But it's just that the COVID is the one that really forced everyone's hands to look into alternatives if you cannot work in a shared space, right? And we also noticed that in terms of wellness, millennials are struggling, especially those who are in their 80s, because they have parents to look after. They have started their families as well, and they have work, right? They have so many things going on, and you couple that with home-based learning, right? When children are also in the home, everything happens at the home. It can be pretty stressful. Burnout is increasing for the millennials, because they feel like they are always on call. So there's no boundary where you can actually switch off. You're expected to there is a certain expectation that if there's an email and you've read it, then you have to reply back to it. So it has taken a toll definitely on the millennial generation. So their mindset has been like, do I really want to continue in an organization? And we are hearing news about the great resignation. I'm sure it must have popped up on your social media feeds. If you're on LinkedIn, there is this thing about people wanting to resign because they feel like there are so many other opportunities out there. Do I really want to work for someone and take orders and be forced to do things, or shall I venture out now and try and do things on my own? So those are a few interesting observations I've had so far. But I'd like to hear what your experiences are also, Farhan, from, and the rest of you, from your end of the world. How has it been? What are you seeing from the millennials perspective? Because I think most of us here are millennials ourselves. Yeah.
Right. So who wants to go first on that question?
I would just quickly add to what Vivek was saying. Another fuel to this entire fiasco is the entrepreneurial dream. The be your own boss, and the ads that we see, and the amount of choice. See, I remember I started working online as a full-time online businessman about 10-12 years ago. And that's where the real business journey started. Before that was the student, the learning phase and all of that. So that bug bit me a long time ago. And then in that decade, so much has happened, and the mindset, the new generation has come up. So I can really see the differences of how difficult it used to be 10 years ago to just convince your parents, or at least from the Asian a part of the world. I'm not talking about the rest of this. To just convince your parents, oh, I'm going to start working online. Forget content creation, forget being a YouTuber, forget being a TikToker. That's just the last few years. Just 10 years ago, there's so much that has happened that, okay, I'm just going to rely on my online income. What do you mean? You're not going to get a job? I mean, there's no entrepreneurship. There's no, this framework has now allowed many people to, not only just on board the train of entrepreneurship, but to be able to convince others, to talk to them, that, oh, so look at this guy, look at that guy. So now they have so many examples around in their own circle of influence, or, in their locality, that they're sharing it with their parents and everything. And even the parents have, less reasons to talk you out of it, that, oh no, job is stability, job is certainty. You don't know what you're talking about because you're just a, wide-eyed, teenager, or, a youth that just, looks at the world as his oyster. You don't know what the reality is, right? But so that landscape has, changed. The entrepreneurial bug on whatever level, whether I want to have a side hustle or actually a startup, there's a range, right? But there's so many more ways to make money online, or to make a name online, to be brandable. It's so easy to create a personal brand in today's day and age, that they see this, that, oh, why do I really want to go in a job culture when there's so much opportunity online? If I can't be a content writer, I'll be a YouTuber. If I can't be a video creator, I'll be a dancer on TikTok. If I can't do that, I'll probably figure something out, but I don't really want to go back to the job culture and, like you said, listen to a boss that I don't really like. So that was my 2 cents.
Great perspective, Mary. Dr. Wendy, you can unmute yourself before you can contribute. Yeah, you can talk now, Dr. Wendy.
Yeah, no, I echo what Mary has just shared, because I have 2 boys, and even they are telling me what exactly Mary has just mentioned.
Wow.
Around 5 men.
I will, definitely, vouch for that, Dr. Wendy. My elder one is 11 years old. And when I ask him, what do you want to be when you grow up? He's like, Mama, I just want to have my own business. I want to chill. I want to be my own boss. Imagine at a young age of 11, my boy is already, so I think it's the generation, they're catching up things really fast,
And when he mentioned about the, getting some proof, he even actually shared me, the YouTube, and also some of the proof or examples of these people who made it, been there, done that. You see, mommy, yeah, my son is only 12 and the younger one is 7. And he said, I want to be a YouTuber when I grow up. It's only 7 years old. Yeah, so I really echo what Mary has just mentioned.
And really the equation of the conversation changes, right? At one point, you're having a conversation with your child. Say this conversation 10 years ago would be a parent actually trying to open their eyes, the child's eyes, right? That you don't know, I know, right? The equation has completely changed because now they have so many case studies, and you're trying to talk your child out of it. So now you're trying to talk your child out of success and potential success that he sees very valid, that, oh, he can do it. I have more talent. I can do so much better. And now you're trying to talk your child out of a business plan, not a dream. Right? And you don't know. They know. They're telling you, Mama, look at him. Look at him. That's a completely shift of power, a shift of equation.
Absolutely.
And you know what I want to add on that? I was leading one keynote session with Junior Leaders Conference. It was for the teenagers, and I gave them one activity that, what if we have to set up one society in Mars? So what do you want to take basic necessary things from Earth to Mars? They said, we don't need schools. We just need Wi-Fi and that's it. And we'll figure out. And even a few commented, we don't need our authoritative parents over there. So we'll be happy with our Wi-Fi and all that with our friends. Yeah. So I was very surprised to see the kind of society that we are living right now versus the kind of society our young generation is demanding. And same is the case on workplace. So my another questions before you all is, what do you think? Is work from home here to stay, or it's just a temporary thing?
Can I go?
I think it will be a mix for me. Yeah, Vivek, go ahead. But I think for me, it's going to be a mix because these days we got accustomed to being at home. The only thing we miss is the social life of actually, going out. But then again, you don't need the office to socialize anymore. So, you can't just do this and we're having
Well,
fun, or you can't
it's
just
kind
go
of,
out for a meal.
yeah,
And
Mel, you find that it's just a love-hate kind of feeling.
yeah, yeah, correct. It's like I don't know. It's like a relationship. One day, if I'm in a good mood, I'll go. But if I'm not in a good mood, I don't want to go. If I feel like seeing you, I'll see you. If I don't want to see you, then we'll stick to virtual. At the very least, I can off my camera. So that's basically how I feel.
That's a good one, Mallory.
I recently interviewed this HR manager from Airmeet, and she's the HR leader there, and they have no office, and they don't plan to own an office because everything is entirely online, right? That means they have a platform where there are tables that's allocated, and you can just join the table or join the room, and then you'll be in a room like this, like how we are, and people at the table is who they can collaborate and work with. So they absolutely, and they have over 300 staff, by the way. So that's the future that we are actually moving towards, which is it becomes optional whether you really need an office, right? So real estate is in big trouble if this picks up, right, in terms of the trend, because then they have to think about what can offices offer other than a physical space. Is there something more that you can do in an office that will keep the employees engaged? Because now everyone's looking at how we can engage with people. And another thing that supports this is the fact that because of COVID, a lot of recruiters have realized that you don't, and even organizational leaders have realized you don't need to actually hire from the talent we have locally. We can actually hire talent internationally. So they are actually hiring. So the first world countries are hiring talents from third world countries at a much cheaper rate, because they feel like we are saving on office, we are saving on talent, and we don't even need to bring them to this country, right? So that's another thing that's also going to happen in a big way because of the development of technology. People's mindset has shifted, and that was the biggest barrier until now. But now that the mindset has shifted and people are much more open to working virtually, I believe that the future will be like this, like how we are all sitting together and talking about a topic, having discussions, and getting work done without exactly having to maybe even meet in person first. So your first impression is actually done online and not in person anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely, yes. And it's also on a different note. It's also a little scary because then you lose on the human touch. I mean, if everything is technology driven, where is the human touch? And you sometimes just wonder if that's the kind of world we are getting into, and if it's here to stay. So I'm definitely missing the human touch. Like, for example, even when I'm training, training participants virtually is becoming so taxing because you miss the good old days wherein you had people in front of you, you interacted, you did activities together. So I feel, I mean, it's definitely something that one misses, the human touch.
And what about the people who aren't comfortable on camera? What about the workforce that is going to be that is going to be demanded that, okay, this is the new era of work, and this is the new tables and organizations and entire floors, like Vivek was saying. And in fact, Vivek, can you please shed more light on like what kind of systems have they got in place, and how can the organizational structure and these teams and rooms and tables that you were talking about, can you please tell us more about it, of how they're executing it all?
So basically they are a platform that actually also works with so their clients are organizations that want to have a platform, right? So they are the platform provider as well. So it only makes sense for them to be completely reliant on their platform in-house, so that they can provide this as a service to their clients. So how it happens is basically like you log in, right? Just like Facebook, you log in, right? And then you enter the main hall, and in the main hall, you can see the different rooms, and you can see different. Once you enter a room, you can see the different tables, right? So at different tables, you have the HR table, you have the customer service table, you have different table, and you know who will sit at which table, and then you find your seat, which is all allocated, and then when you click that seat, then you enter a room like this, where you see the other people at the same table, right? So it's very hard for me to explain it verbally, but when you're there
No, but
virtually,
it's
you
all
experience it.
forming a picture.
It's all, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
You
I
kind
see
of
where
get
you go with
the
this. Yeah.
idea. So it's basically like basically bringing you through the same thing but in a virtual manner. You just click a button and you're in a room. You click another button, you're back in the main hall, and you click another button, you enter a session where people are speaking, right? So they have all this embedded in technology inside. So in a way, it's like different virtual rooms that they've created, and you're just being redirected, through these buttons. Yeah.
All right. It was a personal curiosity as well, because I'm actually in the middle of setting up these systems for my own team and my organization. And I'm trying to figure out the best ways, the tools, and there's so many tools and so many integrations that I'm going crazy. But yeah, so I need this system because I'm going to be out of my office. We have a physical office as well, but I'm going to be, and my team sits here. So I'm going to be out of the country for close to a year now. So I need systems in place to run this entire team properly for up to 12 months. And that's what I'm working on right now. So that's going to be kind of challenging. That's why I was also curious of how they're doing it and how
Great.
now I know of here.
So one more perspective that I need to bring on to you guys is the future of well-being. So when we talk about work from home culture, then what do you think? This is my question to you all. Will well-being be purely responsibility of the leadership, or it will be personal responsibility of the person because he is not having any sort of like physical office? Or how do you take that role of leadership in well-being? I want Mallory's perspective on that because she has been working on leadership teams quite well, so she can give her perspective on that as well.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think once upon a time, well, everybody know well-being is important. Whether is it 60 years ago, 50 years ago, or 5 years ago, everybody talks about well-being. It's just now it's a lot more highlighted. Like mental health is a lot more highlighted because of awareness. That's it. So with that said, as well, because now home and work are integrated, it's no longer separated. Last time it's like, okay, if you fight with your husband at home, that's your problem, don't bring it to work. But now here you are with your kids screaming, your baby is crying, your husband arguing, and you're working. So your work and home is somewhat intertwined in some way. So with that being said, well-being is no longer just your job to maintain how you are at home. It becomes a company's responsibility to make sure that you have a good conducive environment to work, because we are not allowing you to back to office, so you don't have an escape. You don't want to see your kids, that's your problem. You don't want to see your husband, that's your problem. But you got to stay at home and work. So hence why, with that said, a lot of companies are actually working towards how can we integrate well-being as part of learning and development. Because last time, most of the time we just focus on upskilling, preparing you to deliver your performance and KPI and all those things, right? But today, well-being, because it's intangible, they decided that it's best way to integrate it as part of company culture or learning. And hence why it's not just your ownership anymore, but it's also a manager's job to make sure that they keep engagement, to make sure that you check on your colleagues, to make sure that, because we're not seeing each other, why is this person underperforming? Is it because of other reasons? If, let's say, with this COVID situation, a good test would be, if an employee gets COVID, what is your plan? Do you have a care pack for them? Do you have something for their family? Because a lot of times they say, oh, dear, I'm so sorry. Please get well soon and rest well. How is that helpful? But if you can, and with that said, I've seen a lot of, back to the millennial part, rather not work in your organization if they see that's how you treat their employees. I know somebody who was 6 months unemployed, and when she finally got a job and she noticed that her bosses were not treating people with COVID well, she resigned, even though she had 6 months unemployment, because these things became a lot more pertinent to all these millennials, and not just millennials, but young people, parents with kids at home, young people who are taking care of elderly. Their health matters. They rather lose their job and work online and bake and sell cookies on Shopee or Lazada or whatever it is, rather than being in the office with you. So that's how the well-being has been integrated inside.
Great perspective. Thank you so much, Mallory. Dr. Vinny, what's your take on that? The future of well-being when we are talking about, a perspective of leadership and workplace.
Yes, I fully echo also from what Mallory has just said. It's actually no longer the responsibility of ourselves but it's actually the workload, or we have to share the responsibilities among the employer and us, So even we have many different cases, it happens to our friends, and a lot of time, yeah, they are so paranoid with all these things, and it actually affect their mental well-being so much. The stress level went up, and all this would even lead to depression. Even my own staff, if she has been quiet for a few days, not chatting in the what they call the chat, so we even have to text her personally, are you okay, and stuff like that. So we have some of the weekly meeting and stuff like that. One of the staff mentioned, during MCO, he never actually speak to a human being, just texting, maybe all over the phone. So all this are really draining, and even it's very demotivating. So in a way, we have to find a way on the wellness, well-being as a part of training, just like what Mel has mentioned.
Great. Richa, what's your perspective on that? The future of well-being when we are talking about in terms of like leadership and workplace?
You're on mute.
Sorry. So as further to what Mallory and Dr. Wendy has mentioned, I think well-being has become the need of the hour, more so now because of the kind of stress levels going up, and no doubt people have, they are not able to bifurcate between work life now. So many cases are coming wherein you see people so much of depression, so much of stress levels have gone high. Also, having said that, in fact, in a lot of my clients now are looking for mindfulness training, yoga training, which was not there before. It was more on time management and how do you present yourself properly, and all those topics. But now I think off late we have delivered a lot of trainings on mindfulness, because I think that's the need of the hour. A lot of people are going through challenges, and it's about how you are able to integrate that in the as a part of your workplace. So yeah, that's important, very very essential and imperative now.
Right. And when we talk about, well-being, the second word that comes to my mind is millennials, because they are very much into content, they are inhaling content so much, and content is very cheap right now. So considering that the excess or abundance of content, and then well-being, Vivek, what's your take on that? Will that excessive use of content somehow derail our mental health, or will that sort of like complement our mental health, especially when we are talking about the millennials?
Yeah, well, one of the key things that we do notice is they are always on the screen. And it could be they are looking at content, it could be they're waiting for notifications, but I think the most concerning thing is waiting for that dopamine hit when you get a notification, because that's the addiction, right? To keep looking for something new, right? If you're bored, you look at your phone. It's a common trait among all of us today because we have been wired that way by all these technological companies. In fact, I have an interesting question to ask all of you around this mental wellness. Do you know what is your stress signature? Do you know what is your stress signature? That means everyone has a signature, right? But do you know what's your unique stress signature? And this is something that people need to be more aware of, which is how do you express yourself when you are stressed? And everyone should know, okay, when you are stressed, you go quiet. When you are stressed, you just throw things off. When I'm stressed, I do this. Everyone has a unique stress signature, and people are just starting to learn about these things, because until now mental wellness has not been talked about enough, right? But understanding that I have a unique way of expressing myself when I'm angry, when I'm stressed out, when I have a lot of things on my mind, actually is the topic that people have to be focusing on today, because there's just too many things happening. And like you said, right, content is coming in. You are not only consuming content, you're also comparing yourself online, right? So millennials, one of the key things that they are doing is they're looking at all the other friends on social media, and they're like, wow, this guy's really got his life together. Why am I still in the same rut? Or why is my life not moving forward? So that comparison mindset, it kind of is the older generation used to do it. Older generation used to say, oh, this neighbor's son is doing this and he's gone to US and he's got this job, and now it's just online, right? So it's just the same kind of behavior, but it's become a lot more faster. It's 100x, itself. So if you're in a community of trainers, you're just going to be seeing a lot of trainers who are doing really, really well, and you'll be thinking to yourself, like, am I doing enough? Am I on par? Am I behind? That comparison is always there. So millennials who are who are working in startups, they are comparing with people who are in MNCs. Those who are in MNCs are comparing themselves with those who are in startups, and this continues to go. And we have to understand, how do I stop this? How do I put limits on it? How do I make sure that I don't get affected by it? And how do I compose myself so that my mental well-being, in basically you're able to sleep without having all these thoughts in your mind, and it's affecting you, getting you to question yourself, lower your self-esteem. All of these are very concerning issues, actually, and it will continue if we don't know how to navigate the social media world and navigate the digital world properly and have the right barriers in place to protect our mental well-being. So I believe that the future of mental wellness, it's very, very important for organizations to learn to equip the individuals on how they can protect themselves from all these things that's happening. So it's a lot of things going on right now.
If I can just add, actually, that's a very good point. I really like that part. Or are you aware of what your stress trigger? Like for me, I procrastinate when I'm stressed. I get lazy when I'm stressed out. But I think one thing that people don't talk about enough is the struggles and challenges that one is facing. And because actually a lot of people say that, oh, it's for inspiration purposes, but actually there are many different answers to questions like that. Because who knew procrastination, for my case, procrastination is a way of stress. Silence the way of stress. People will just say that, oh, they're tired, or they are shy, or they're lazy. They don't say that they are stressed. So the more, I think, an element, if let's say you're a company or even an individual, if you're just lost and not sure how to help someone, I think you just share the challenges that you are going through, and everyone can learn from somebody's challenges, that, oh, I'm not alone in this. Or even besides that, oh, these are things that I should take note of. I might not be aware. So I think those are important things that people don't talk a lot about and should be talked about.
Great.
So, adding to what Mallory was saying, I think it's very now that this generation that's coming in, the millennials, they are hardly talking to each other. It's only through online and stuff like that, and somewhere that's also leading to a lot of mental a reason for them to not communicate with each other. So even if they're sitting side by side with somebody, they will rather chat with them rather than physically go and talk to them. So that's again becoming a concern, and that's, I think, the way the future is leading us into, the technical part of it minus the human touch of it. So that's again a question on on the well-being of people.
True. And even bringing the same behavior into workplace, will we be seeing any board meeting where all will be just texting to each other, all the directors and CEOs, or they'll be just talking to each other? And to build on that, Mehdi, what's your perspective on this, inhalation of content, or the abundance of content on the mindfulness? As we were discussing a few days back about the use of like social media or even YouTube, or even that race of the race that Vivek just mentioned, that FOMO factor of fear of missing out. Maybe how do you take that perspective of like abundance of content and its impact on the overall society and mental health of all, especially the millennials? You're mute. Can't hear you.
You're muted.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're
Okay.
muted.
Right. I would like to kind of voice my thoughts as honestly as possible on this, because not only this topic is keeping me up at night these days, but this has been a topic of discussion. It's part of what all of you have said in different segments, right? And I see a caveat there that on one end, we are aware to the extent, or at least creating awareness about our stress signatures, about how to deal with stress better, about the downside of the lack of human connection, right? In some parts of all our answers, this is the key factors that we're playing with here. At the same time, we have to, and then the fear of missing out, the creation of content and consumption of content, on a consistent basis. To what extent are we stuck to our screens? Even us, not just teenagers or kids, but us and the generation that we see around us, the people that we interact with the most. To what extent are we stuck to our screens? To what extent is it good? So on one end, we are creating programs, we're creating more awareness, we're building. We're training more people on how to cope with stress, how to cope with anxiety, how to cope with this lack of, human engagement and overuse of technology and screens and dopamine hits. But on the other hand, the same companies that we are all either involved with or work for or are bound for are spending millions and billions of dollars, have teams. You and I may be, a one person or a 10 person, 20 people organization working towards it. There's so much money, resources consistently being put into getting us stuck and glued on that platform. Is this a fair fight? While you and I can be creating awareness to our teenagers, oh, this dopamine hit, this thing is bad for you, right? This kind of, it's bad for your circuitry. It's bad for your brain. You'll feel less happy, less blissful, less joyful, less mindful in real life. If you're stuck to the screen and the notification every second, your actual interactions, relationships, and your expectations around you and your world will be not normal, let's just say, because until this becomes the new normal, and it's quickly becoming the new normal, my social status is stuck to the amount of viewership or likes or pages and, stuff that, my self-worth is, again, in question when I compare myself. Hey, I make a lot of money, but I'm not famous. I don't have 1 million followers on TikTokers. So, these kind of parameters is this a fair fight? Is this the amount of work that we all, 6 of us, can collectively do in our regions and create awareness? We're going against, corporations and people like us, creative, strategic people like us, you and I, are designing these systems with teams to get other people like us stuck to their platform. So we have to see the fuller equation here, the dangers, while we're amazed that, we were all happy when we started working at home. At least most of us were. There was a happiness factor in the beginning of it, at least for a majority, until they realized the downside of it, until we all had kids coming in our meetings and, doing weird things on camera and we getting, not that focused capsules of time to focus on our work because my family needs some errand to run, or I need to fix something, or I need to get groceries or whatever. So that's kind of, I think I've said a lot, and I'm very open to what you guys think about it. But I just wanted to it's not even an opinion, it's a concern, an honest concern with where we're going. And these are the things that I'm looking into, and I don't have an answer for it. Right, so it's open to discussion for you all.
Back to what we have actually raised and what Vivid has actually mentioned. To me, a lot of time, the FOMO or even the comparison that actually makes us having some mental well-being issues is also boils down on the topic of personal branding. Now, a lot of time, I think this word personal branding has been overused, misused, or being abused by a lot of people. So to them, they thought of like having a share of what they post or having the consistency of posting, all those things will contribute to their personal branding. But in a way, sometimes it backfire. Okay, because when we misunderstanding what personal branding is all about, sometimes we tend to have comparisons, just like what we have mentioned. So when we compare, so after a while, it is no longer authentic. They are not the authentic self of themselves. So they are trying to mimic this person, what they do, and stuff like that. So back to all those things, we have to be clear and genuine, like what Maddie has mentioned. It's not about the engagement, how many likes you have and stuff like that. So as a leader, sharing the right contents that represents us and how this contents help other people in one way or another. Try to share some contents that actually, mind provoking, so that people can get benefited from that. This is what I have in. Yeah.
Great. So now I want to bring one more topic into the discussion. So we all agree that mindfulness or well-being is the need of the hour. We all agree that the workplace future will be sort of like air meet, or it'll be like, okay, you can work from home. So what will be the role of leadership in all such situation when people are not fully mindful, when people are working from home? So will there be any challenges for the leaders of tomorrow to deal with sort of like all these issues, or will it be like autopilot thing and it won't be any bigger issue? So what do you see the three major challenges for leadership of tomorrow that the current leaders should focus on?
Okay, I'll just chip in what I think is definitely going to be needed. First is to be brave when you don't know what you're going to do is going to work. I think we've seen, that during this crisis, we've seen world leaders experience something completely new, and we've seen some people be very rigid into saying. I think even most of us can be found guilty saying that this will go away 3 months, right? 6 months maximum, end of year, right? And then there are people who said, no, we should look into this, and we don't know where we are going, but let's put our resources together and be agile about it. And they are vulnerable, right? Meaning they are open enough to say that I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm still going to do it anyway because I feel this is the best option we have, right? So being brave enough to be vulnerable is going to be one of the key things that leaders need to adopt, right? Instead of saying I know the way, like I do remember some leaders who said that, oh, herd immunity is going to cure us all, and then just let the coronavirus just spread all over the world, and then we're still waiting for that herd immunity to happen. All right. So that is one of the key things that I believe, an expert, they say, right, is not someone who knows something, but is someone who's willing to be challenged and have a conversation about it so that he can look into different points of view, right? So I think that is a very distinct shift from the current or existing leadership that we've had, because the older generations, it's always been, I need to know the answers. But in the newer world we're going to go into, it's going to be, I don't know the answers, but I think I have an idea, right? I think that would be one of the key ways to define how the younger generation would be looking up to leaders as well. Yeah.
And
Mel,
Mallory, yeah.
no worries, no worries. Maybe Mel, you go ahead.
Dr. Wendy, you go first. It's okay.
No,
Go
no,
ahead.
I just actually want to tell Vivek that I'm actually in love with what I've just heard. It's so true. It is so true. As a leader,
Yes.
a true leader is someone who are okay to show the vulnerability. Because it is okay for a leader not to know everything and not to have every answer for everything. So, and it needs courage for a leader to tell them that I don't know the answer, but let's do it together. So, yeah, so this is actually what I really just like, from what Vivek had mentioned.
I think I want
Great.
to create a different
Yeah.
perspective of this because we had a culture dialogue with one of the companies, a 100+ year old company. So imagine they've been around forever, and now they have to go through so many changes because 100+ years ago we don't have COVID-19, right? So with that said, this topic came about what our leaders they're looking for, and ironically, one of the key words was transparency. Okay, they want to, because a lot of things now are virtual, unlike those days where you have memos circulating. These days you have a sentence circulating. No, actually your social media will tell you before your boss tells you anything. That's basically what the world is today. Okay, so we have seen companies who are not doing well, and they wake up, the employees get their WhatsApp circulated or Facebook circulated before their boss even say anything. So, but one thing I like to throw on is that when you request for transparency, you also need to um, be able to receive the truth. I think that's a better way to say it. Because a lot of times we want transparency for good news, but we cannot take transparency when it's bad news. What happens when a company really has to be liquidated, and or either the decision that was made okay, and it didn't go right, and there are many costs or circumstances or problems that came about to it. Yes, the idea of it we can do together, but on the other hand, as a receiver, are you brave enough to receive that news and say, okay, I'm still sticking with you, or that fear of unknown stresses you out more? So I think one thing that I'm pretty sure it's a hit for future leaders is transparency, but also to be able to address not just the leaders but also as employees, because the future is all about independent leadership. It's not so much on a top-down approach waiting for your boss to tell you anymore. It's you are your own ownership. Especially all the 101 millennials that wanted to start their business, right? You are your own ownership. So when you request or ask or demand for truth and transparency, another sentence is, can you take it if it's not favorable to you? So that's just something that I really wanted to highlight.
Richa, what's your perspective on that? The future challenges for leadership.
So I think it's the new leadership, the new challenges that they're facing with, I think two important words come to my mind. One is the personal touch. I think that's something that the leaders have to now be very, very mindful of, communicating and reaching out to people. Sometimes people may not want to speak up, but then, as a true leader, how do you make people get out of your comfort zone, and how do you really reach out to them to check whether they're okay? That empathy is very, very is the need of the hour, and everybody wants to be comforted. So I think
Especially when we're moving towards virtual, the distancing and technology and the lack of human touch. That's even more applicable, right?
absolutely, absolutely, Maddie. Yeah. So I think that's one thing which is definitely the need of the hour, the personal touch and the empathy. And I think the second thing which comes to my mind is to be flexible in your, in your styles of leadership, because gone are the old ways of leadership. The new millennials are definitely looking at something which is more, which is a very different way of leadership. So being more agile, being more flexible, being more open towards adapting yourself to new things is something which is the need of the hour for the new leaders, not being stuck to the same old patterns of thinking and behaving and leading people. So that's my thought on that.
I think I would just like to add a little bit to what Richa was saying. That comes with, again, a caveat, though, that, not everything old is out of the window yet. So when young people start rejecting the old ways just because they're old, we forget to synthesize the learnings and things that may still be applicable, the wisdom of our older generations. So we can't just, have one hammer and say, oh, it's a new brave world and we're just going to try and experiment and everything old is out of the gate. Out of the window, and it's not in the equation anymore. But I think again, maybe this is our role here because we have been taught from older generations their wisdom, their books, their knowledge, and we've seen what worked there and what were we advised to work on, and now we gotta see which elements can we take out, the wisdom that is still applicable, maybe the principles. A principle-based approach, not like a systematic approach. Maybe the system may be new, but a value-based, principle-based approach, that what values do we still keep with us, take with us in this new brave world that we're together handling, forming, shaping, creating, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said that, Maddie. Completely agree. The values that we need to teach the new generation, or the values that we want to cascade down. So definitely there are a lot of things that can't be thrown out of the window, but then it's upon the new millennials to take it up.
Or us to synthesize for them.
Yes.
That, hey, don't forget this part. Okay, what you're saying is right. We understand this is different, but these things you don't know yet. Please keep these things in mind while you're creating this new system.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one more, thought to the conversation that I would like to bring is the role of leadership that we are just mentioning or trying to, gather thoughts on. versus the excessive amount of being tech savvy and being digital and virtual. So when we talk about leadership, we mostly say it's about the human touch, it's about inspiring humans, it's about creating that human connection, or even building that trust, or even transparency. But with the amount of tech and virtual and digital things that we have, don't you think the role of leadership will be sort of like limited or will be diminished as compared to that? Because everything else, if that is automated or systemized, then will leaders will be influencing or inspiring machines only? Or how do you see that role?
I think for me, machine can't strategize, leaders can. So the tools are here to facilitate and expedite growth or changes or collaboration or whatever it is the world is going to move towards to. But the leaders still need to be the person that strategize, that plans, that makes the decision end of the day. So to me, it wouldn't be diminished, but however, this is also where we call reskilling and rebuilding different individuals because yes, once upon a I'm pretty sure machines will replace certain mundane jobs that can be automated. And machines can replace jobs that are skill based rather than thinking based or strategizing based. So that's also where it comes down to the ownership of individuals, schools, parents, environments, to prepare your future generation leaders or youths or even somebody who is at the mid of their career. If you are not skilled or equipped enough and you're not flexible or adaptive enough to be able to do different roles, that's where it's the ball's on your court to take up courses, lessons, and plenty of sessions, things like this, where you can just join in and learn and upskill yourself and be ready because the company is not going to say, okay, we're going to stop growth because of you. Ain't gonna happen. So eventually you need to be the person that says, okay, I need to grow. I'll be either I'm growing my own business or I'm starting something or I gotta be relevant. I gotta stay adaptable and it's on me. It's on me to grow. So that's what I think it is. So it's not going to replace. I don't think it replaces leader, but I think it might actually make more leaders.
Oh, great thought. Uh, Vivek, what do you think, or the other panelists? The role of digital or the virtual, abundance of that virtual content, and will that diminish or limit the role of leadership, or will that complement?
It will complement definitely because all machines, robots, AI are programmed by a human. Okay, without human, that cannot work. So leadership will be here to stay, and in a way, all this will help to strengthen leaderships and duplicate more leaders because you have proper system, you can do it even better, and it's now borderless. So when we actually use something that might, yeah, a lot of people might think that this will threaten us as a human, but if we are able to integrate well on the humanizing and the digitalizing part, things will be even better, stronger, and just like what Mel mentioned, instead of actually diminishing, but it complements and it will actually make leaders stronger. We will definitely are able to duplicate more leaders.
Great, great. Vivek, what's your thought on that? Role of leadership, do you see limited in future or it's even expanded as compared to right now?
Yeah. So my understanding or belief of a good leader, there are different types of leader. A good leader or is someone who can basically bring a team together and get more work done as a team as opposed to doing this individually. That's the role of the leader, which is to make sure that if we have 5 people in a team, we are doing more work as a team as opposed to doing work individually, right? So if as a leader, the 5 people are together and they are not accomplishing even the work of 3 people that could have done individually, then that leader is not doing enough. So in a space and time where we have automation, we have AI, where a lot of the repetitive tasks have been taken over by these machines, then the role of the leader really becomes crucial in ensuring that the people who are there, the humans who are there, are feeling like they are engaged. Now, how do you know whether the people in your team are engaged? It is to really appeal to the human side, which is something that the machines may not be able to tell. They can't look at your face and say, maybe you're not really happy about coming to work today, what's wrong?"
Yet.
Are you okay? Yeah, yet. Yeah, exactly. So yet, right? So that's where a leader can come in to really, talk things through with you, maybe even empathize with you. And these are the roles, these are the things that the leader can do to make sure that, they can inspire, they can create those emotions that make the people within the team want to do more, right? So we've seen this in workplaces today where people are in a team, but they don't just want to do anything because they don't believe in the leader, they don't like the leader, they don't like the people in their team, so they just want to be dead weight, right? We've seen this, and that's because the leader has not been able to get through to the person, hasn't been able to align everybody together, hasn't been able to bring them in one direction at the same cadence and pace. So that's where I believe leadership in moving forward, right? If in a very big if these machines cannot do those kind of tasks, then we will need leaders to step in and have those coaching and mentoring capabilities in order to bring the team together. And if machines come in, then I think just be brave, have fun, and see how it goes along the way. Yeah.
Great. And Richa, what's your perspective on that? The excessive use of technology or AI or digital or virtual thing, will that limit the role of leader, or will that expand or even overburden leaders with more work to do?
Right. So I believe, Farhan, that so digital technology can be seen as a boon or a curse, or there has to be a very fine balance between seeing it as whichever way you want to see it. So I believe the leaders of today, or the leaders of the future, have to have this fine balance between not getting overburdened by the technology, the AI, the machine, the automation, at the same time keeping that the human connection and that personal touch with people. So just to give you an example, last couple of weeks I've been doing some leadership workshop for a couple of organization, and though the training was classroom training, physical, we were there in the classroom training. However, the kind of the context setting which the leaders or the managers, the top CEO, how that person had kind of got everybody together, that emotion touched, I don't think that the technology could have done that. So getting everybody on the virtual platform and motivating them, and to undergo that session and stuff like that. So I think that also really helped. So definitely there will be a fine balance, and every leader of today and the future has to draw that line somewhere. um, you know so that's my take
Great.
on it.
So, Mehdi, before I ask you the same question, just I want to ask: will you be missing the human touch that you have with your team right now once you are moving out of Pakistan?
Absolutely, absolutely, without a doubt. And it's going to be see, because, and you personally know my background, right? We come from physical trainings with 20 people workshops to 1,000 people seminar to 2,000 people, and stuff like that. So, and I know for a fact from experiential learning that we feed off of each other's energy, right? The audience's energy, communicates, translates, speaks to you before you even communicate anything, right? And it's vice versa. Your energy translates into audience. The more you speak, the more you engage, the more you move in front of them, the more they are able to see you. You are vibrational beings, right? We all believe that in some way, shape, or form, some context. We all know we're all vibration and energy at the end of the day, right? So that vibration in the same room, we're all vibrating together, right? That's not going to happen. Your vibration is going to go into a camera and an audio, and it's going to translate it into zeros and ones, and going to servers and firewalls, and then going back. So it's not just me who's going to be missing the human connection. The humans involved in this entire equation, there is no human connection. So the connectivity that is in between us, that is the an enabler and a barrier at the same time. And we got to live with it. So I got to find a fine balance where there's not just human connection, there's enough audio, video, and but also there's enough check-ins throughout the day. And because what about the conversation that you have with your team during breaks? you know in a virtual world, we'll all sign off from the camera and an audio and go take a break because we're sick of the screen. We need to refreshen our eyes. We need to maybe, get a coffee, a smoke break, whatever, check up on things that we had going on in the background while we were live. So we're all going to disperse in a break instead of come together and have that coffee, have that lunch, have that smoke break together and talk about, and maybe even bitch about each other during the workplace. The team banter that we call, right? What about that? You're going to take a break away from the screen and say, oh, I'm sick of the screen. Maybe you're not sick of your boss, but you're sick of the screen. You've been looking at it for hours. So not only I'm going to miss the connection, I believe that it's going to be a first-hand experience on how do I deal with this in the future, because my team is not going to go small. We're going to grow, inshallah. So we have to build this and get more people into the system while keeping the human connection, while keeping everybody focused on why we exist, what is our vision, what is our mission, what does this team do together, and have new people gel in with the old people who are used to a physical office. So, it's a dynamic, changing relationship. It is going to be challenging. Thanks to technology and thanks to tools, it is, also an enabler, right? So we get to see each other, we get to hear each other, and so it's going to play its part. And I think I'm optimistic, but I don't want to be overly optimistic. I see there is a trade-off. I see there is something that is going to go down, at least at first, and until it picks back up, the collective energy. So that's my thoughts on that.
Okay, so the last part of this discussion is about one suggestion for employees or the professionals that are working for their mental well-being or their mindfulness, and one suggestion for leaders. What should they be focusing on? So, Mallory,
are we towards the end of the session already? Wow.
Yeah. So, Mallory, I just want to ask you this question. What do you think should be one practical or actionable thing that people should be doing when they are back to the office? And one suggestion for leaders.
Okay, I think I'll start with the leaders first. For leaders, be open to listen, because only when you gain more insights on what happens on ground, you can make clear decisions. Because moving forward, like what Vivek mentioned, right, we really don't know. So a lot of things is, you try and you fail and you figure it out. So the best way to try and fail is to listen before you try and fail. So for me, leaders is to listen. And secondly, for everybody else, is to seek mentorship. Because there are a lot of things that you are probably going to go through you've never experienced before. And mentorship is not always some guru somewhere. It could seriously just be a colleague next to you virtually. But it's a colleague that has gone through something that you have not gone through before, or have experienced something you have not experienced before. Seek mentorship, be open to ask for feedback, because only then you can be adaptive to grow. So that's my two takes. Listen and mentor. Okay.
Okay. So, Vivek, what's your take on that? One suggestion for leaders, for the future leaders, and one suggestion for the employees who will be joining back to the work. Can't hear you? Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. So for leaders, I believe that the first thing that they should be doing is to start looking and building connections with other leaders. Why? It's because when you have a network of leaders around you, they become your support system. They become the people that you can bounce off ideas with. They become the people that you can share your challenges with. And I think it's very common to hear this. Leadership, it's very lonely at the top. So having that support system for leaders to take care of the people under you is very important. So leaders, please make sure you're well networked and you are building relationships, even though you have so many things to do, because that's the thing that's going to keep you going. For those who are going back to the office, right? For you, it's about how can you manage your mental wellness, because you're going to be overworked if this continues. you're going to feel the burnout. You're going to feel that you're being overworked and underpaid and underappreciated because you're not having that kind of physical even feel to it. You're not having that human connection. So it's going to be like that. But one thing you can do is to be proactive about it and learn what's your stress signature, learn how to let go of your stress, learn how to manage those levels so that even when it gets crazy, you know how to. It's like a pressure cooker, right? You know how to release the pressure of the pressure cooker. You're pretty fine. But if the pressure cooker just keeps on boiling and then it bursts, then that's not a good state to be in. So for those who are going back, learn how to identify your stress signature and release your stresses. Is going to be so important for you moving into the future that we are in.
Great. Dr. Wendy, would you like to contribute on that one actionable or practical tool for leaders of tomorrow?
So
And
for both the mental and as well as leaders, I have 3 C's for that. See, connect, communicate, and comprehend. So because once we're back to work, be it mentally or well-being side or be it being a leader, so we have to do the connection within ourselves and the connection within ourselves and the people around us. So after we connect, we have to communicate. The communication within ourselves as well. Because I think a lot of time, yeah, people are so into communicating with the people around us and they have forgotten that we ourselves we need to communicate with ourselves. Are we truthful? Are we really being authentic? Are we doing things that we really love? And that is actually a big huge or big chunks, yeah, that takes off our well-being. So and the last one is to comprehend how much we understand the people around us and understand ourselves. Because as a leader that actually are able to take care of the well-being and being a good leader, these 3 C's have to be in place at all times. So how can we connect, communicate, and comprehend at all times?
great. Richa, would you like to contribute on that? One thing for
Yes,
leaders? Yeah.
absolutely. But before that, Dr. Wendy, I love the 3 C's: connect, communicate, and comprehend. I think very, very practical and very, very a must do to everybody. So thanks for sharing that. Um, one thing which I feel the leaders need to incorporate is be more empathetic towards people. People will be coming back, in a lot of stress, frustration. People have lost their loved ones during these COVID times. So be more empathetic, more encouraging towards your people. And one thing which is for everybody is, I think when you come back, post these 2 years, motivate each other, encourage one another. We are all in this together. No country, no everything. All of us are together here. So encourage and motivate each other, and yeah, I think that's very important.
Great. Mary, what are your thoughts on all the suggestion for leaders and the people who will be joining back to the work?
I think it's a centralized thought, which basically says the same thing in different words that my fellow colleagues have said. Keep the human in the middle of all of it, right? Be human centric. Yeah, it's same for leaders and even for workers. Be human centric, and the first human that you have a relationship with is yourself. So as a worker, and that's with self leadership as well, right? That ties in perfectly with that. So be human centric and acknowledge that. And that's the same advice I would give to future leaders and organizations who are leading us into the future. Be human centric, right? If we, to what extent are we relying on machines and AI and automating tasks, and to HR people who are managing entire workforces as well. Please be human centric. Yes, there's data. Yes, there's analytics and there's so many analytical factors that they have their own KPIs of measuring success. But in that measuring success, again, keep human in the middle of it. Then comes the organization. So if my organization is profitable, but all the humans involved are extremely unhappy, stressed out, and anxious, I wouldn't call that a successful organization. So again, so there's got to be a nucleus from which all the ripples, are connected. The drop that connects everyone together, and it affects everyone together, right?
Right. Thank you so much, Mary, and thank you so much, everyone, for taking your time out and sharing your, worthy and very good ideas on the subject. So before I conclude the session, what is my, understanding on the topic? What I learned from all of you is like future of leadership definitely needs to be aligned with the change that will be happening, but it should not let the human touch or the human factor outside of the box or outside of the window. Second, we discuss about the mindfulness. We all agree that that's the need of the hour, and not just individuals, but organization will have to find ways to keep their employees motivated and mindful at the workplace. And for the workplace, we all agree that it will be sort of like mix of things. People are used to that working from home culture, and definitely it will be very challenging for the workplaces to keep continuing their productivity and performance on the larger scale. So with this note, on behalf of all these speakers, I want to thank all our listeners who are watching us on YouTube. And from my platform, Ripple Effect and Future Thought Leaders Club, I welcome you all the speakers to the party as the founder member of this club. And what I'm looking forward to is building community of people like you who will be driving leaders on how to drive their businesses, how to drive their teams, and we will be leveraging each other's experiences and opinions in form of collaborative efforts. And such example is right now we all are here. So with this note, thank you so much, everyone. I am trying to end this broadcast right now, and we'll have the final chit chat in the speaker session before we move on to the next strategy of Future Thought Leaders Club. So thank you so much, everyone, from my behalf.
All right,
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks, Farhan, for having us all here. Appreciate
Thank you,
My
it.
pleasure.
everybody.
My pleasure. My pleasure.